Great. Okay. We are on to our very last agenda item, which is forward-looking. You have spent time in your working groups over the past 2 days, ideating, reviewing, coming up with things that need to be better, that are hurdles to your current job and workflows. So I'd like to invite the co-chairs up, starting with Working Group 1. To discuss the next steps, given all of the ideas that everyone's been talking about.
Thank you. Okay. So we had, as you all know, we had 2 breakout sessions for working groups. In Working Group 1, we focus on creating a streamlined BEM process. We spoke about 2 key areas, one of which was related to AI, and all working groups spoke about this. We were talking about opportunities for advancing AI capabilities in all aspects of code, including modeling and verification. So one of the key problems we identified during our discussions, so while AI presents major opportunities for advancing capabilities, code checks, modeling, permitting, the development and adoption of AI-based solutions still is pretty slow and limited. Some of the key barriers are, of course, something that we are all aware of. Gen AI, there are hallucinations, and to have confidence in the output of AI-based tools is pretty limited. And also, AI is developing at a fast pace. So any capabilities we develop now, there's going to be a better way of doing it in the near future. Potential action items for us in 26. We had a pretty lively discussion on this topic, and I feel like there's still an opportunity to keep talking about this, identify priorities, key areas that we could develop capabilities for. Maybe we partner with other organizations such as IBIPSA USA and ASHRAE, which are also looking into this, identify some concrete areas where we can develop capabilities, where we have confidence in the output of AI, and we think we're leveraging some of its strengths, and that's something that we pursue within our working group or develop a project proposal for. So as a next step, we want to talk about priorities and maybe identify a very specific task which would be useful for California, for codes, and for existing buildings, and develop that further. So one discussion item for this group would be, can you think of a very contained area of exploration where we could develop a capability and which could be useful for California in energy modeling?
All right, in day 2, one of the topics we discussed was building performance standards, really building off of the great panel from this morning that was in the main room. We had our panelists join the discussion, and actually they did most of the heavy lifting because it was basically a lively Q&A session where we were trying to understand what's coming, when's it coming, what was the thought process behind X, Y, Z. Really enlightening, and the only negative thing I have to say is that we ran out of time and there were still more questions on the table. But we did identify some things that need further discussion, including alignment of metrics, the fact that compliance models are definitely not predictive, prescriptive compliance, absolutely not predictive. So how do we deal with new construction projects and when they're subject to BPS? What can we do as modelers to provide better confidence that the projects we build will meet these building performance standards? So it's an ongoing discussion. We'll be inviting you guys back to support us in the future. So some of the possible actions we identified for next year is to continue tracking the great work that the Energy Commission is doing. They mentioned that there is an upcoming report draft that's going to provide a lot more clarity on the proposed details. Not necessarily every detail will be in that plan, but it's going to give us the opportunity to read through the plan, provide feedback to the Energy Commission from the modeler's perspective. So once the report comes out, we definitely invite you all to read it and think about what sort of feedback we can provide to help to make sure this program is as successful as possible. We concluded today's working group breakout session by asking all of our members to highlight some things that they thought we ought to be looking at for prioritization moving forward. We kind of reviewed some of the things we've discussed in the past and asked for future priorities. And one thing that came up at the very end, so I only have this one slide. We don't know exactly what the next steps are, but AB 130 introduces some uncertainty and other complex feelings about how we're going to model buildings like hotels, motels, mixed-use buildings. So the technical implementation details need to be figured out rapidly because software is being released and we don't know how we're going to model these buildings. So I think that's an important topic for not just our working group to discuss, but I think also the software development team, the Energy Commission, and we hope that we can provide some valuable input on that process. So thank you.
So you'll notice there was a discussion question earlier. We do want to use this time as an opportunity for the group as a whole to give feedback on the Working Group 1 discussion questions. So I'm just going to haul them back up here and make them take your questions or comments on the items that they reviewed just now. Thank you. Another important point is that I used to TA astronomy, and if I ask a question and nobody has a response, I just stand up there awkwardly until somebody has a question. So.
I'd like to continue exploring what potential data we can collect in our benchmarking authority, under our benchmarking authority, to support the building energy modeling community.
That's a great question, and that's a great thought too. Benchmarking data is currently limited by what's being reported in Portfolio Manager, and that depends upon use types. So for offices, you might have a number of computers, which we all understand is pretty irrelevant in this time and day. So it depends on what we can do with that benchmarking data. There are industry tools which can take monthly utility data and predict with some level of uncertainty what building characteristics can be. We can explore if such tools are going to be useful or such methodologies are going to be useful for prioritizing buildings for retrofits, what additional information could be useful to maybe improve the outcome of just using benchmarking data for prioritizing building for retrofits, or even prioritizing buildings for long-term improvements versus just retro-commissioning improvements. So that's a great topic, and I think we should definitely maybe have another discussion on it.
Yeah. Ideally, we'd like a detailed inventory of every piece of equipment in the building, so let's make that happen.
Jim Lutz again, and I don't know if this should be. Is it on? Okay. I don't know if this should be Working Group 1 or Working Group 3, but since Neil's up there, I'll bring it up now. You all heard about the problems that heat pump water heaters are having on getting into CBIC in a timely fashion and accurately. What is the role of CalBEM to address that, or what would be the best way to address that? Is there any way CalBEM can push that forward?
Definitely Working Group 3. No, I think it's, at the very beginning, we gave a recap of what we did during our summer webinars, and we had the cross-pollination, so it was like a Working Group 3, 1, and 2 kind of contributed to this topic of just equipment performance in general. And there's a wide variety of reasons why things need to be done the way they've been done, things why we want to move and progress towards maybe more product-specific things. And I think we could continue to have some of those discussions, but we want to move beyond discussions and have some action and, maybe pitch that, there are efforts to help standardize this, to make inroads, especially with manufacturers, to bring them into this room. Like I said earlier, I think that's going to go a long way in terms of getting the right amount of detail into the models, into the compliance analysis that we're doing.
just really quickly add, and this is more of a generic answer. I think one of the reasons why we have CalBEM is it's an opportunity for us as modelers to raise issues that are important to us. And if these issues come up time and time again, we have the attention of the Energy Commission, the utilities, people who can fund projects to make these things happen. So, I encourage you all to speak up when you're in the working group sessions, and let your voice be heard.
I'd add on to Dimitri's, especially if you are maybe in the newer 25% of modelers, because the co-chairs are generally folks who are more experienced, who have been around for a while and who have the networking connections, but they can't project themselves into being a new modeler in today's landscape. And so with that, if you're in that category of people, you have a really valuable perspective and view set. And so I know sometimes it's scary if you don't know anybody in the room, but know that if you do raise your hand and have something to say, it's very valued. Up next is Working Group 2. I will ask Eric Coldrup and Nick Brown to the stage.
Thanks, Elise. You tired?
They are, I can tell.
Yeah, that's because this is a working conference, isn't it? It's not a back on your heels, sit in your chair and absorb information conference. And that's kind of what makes it different and I think exceptional. One item that came out of our efforts 2 years ago that we'll be watching closely this year is A2's effort to bring BEM awareness up in universities across California. So there's an opportunity for all of you to provide input on the curriculum and to potentially be a guest speaker and give back to these young people who are ready to enter the workforce and don't even know about BEM, most likely. So wanted to remind you about that.
So I think maybe all working groups were instructed to make issue number 1 about AI. So that's where we came in. So, on the education and resources side, it came up at the beginning of our working group. We spent a few minutes talking about, what our favorite BEM resources were as a means of introduction. And mine was the DOE 2.1A engineering manual. And if you don't know what that is, that's probably good. But a number of the younger people in the room were, ChatGPT. And I asked it questions about building energy modeling. And then somebody else said, how do you know that it's giving you useful information? So new modelers are using chat type AIs, and AI hallucinates, as we know. We don't know how good the models are that seems like a problem, right? So on the barrier side, one of the issues was the lack of data and knowledge to benchmark and score these large language models. And Professor Zhang talked yesterday about the model that he's developed and the source information that he used to train that. But he's concerned that there's not enough good quality data. And then on the other side, guidance on using large language models. So if you are a young modeler, what are some best practices you might follow? But there's perhaps not. There's a lack of that kind of guidance. And the image here is what you get from Google AI if you ask it an image of building energy modeling hallucination. So we struggle a little bit with possible actions for 2026. So webinars on good AI practice, perhaps, sharing information, a white paper on best practice, curate BEM knowledge that could be used for training models. And I'm not the right person to tell you what that means. And then we're certainly open to suggestions. So next steps, webinars, and were there other next steps that we sort of talked about on this topic? The
Right, and then, Ryan and Josh have been shopping around at a potential project to develop a roadmap for BEM, or for AI and BEM. So that's another potential next step to participate in that process. We'll come back to this question, but one thing I learned was that, those QA pairs that were being used to train that chat GPT, there were 11,000 of these QA pairs, and ideally somebody would go through those and make sure that they were all right. But the QA pairs that were developed to train the AI were produced by AI. There you go. Anyway, we can come back to that question and think about, whether you're going to volunteer for this. You take this over, Nick.
The thing about this format is we're not fully in control. And there's a lot of brainstorming and bubbling up of ideas. And we spent a lot of time at the top of the funnel this year, have fewer potentially concrete projects perhaps growing out of it. But there was a theme at the top of the funnel around complex, big learning curve tasks that BEMers can benefit from, but often never get to. Programming and scripting was an example, which can be used for processing inputs or outputs at faster speed and driving down cost of BEM. So there's real cost to modelers, employers, and the building design teams to not have these skills present in the industry. So to try to rectify this, there's not a Khan Academy for BEM the way there is for many other subjects. No go-to educational resource. Our group said many of the resources they used when they were first in the industry were exceptionally old and not available when you were on deadline, when you really needed them. So we thought more discussion on this topic was warranted to develop a list of what those skills are and potentially explore developing training resources in those areas. So I think we'll probably have another follow-up session with our working group to explore those areas. But we thought we'd open up to the floor for your feedback in this area, for us to take into account. Do you agree that these types of training resources in areas with large learning curves would be useful? And if so, what are the highest priority skills? Yeah, we're done. Yeah, or anything.
Yeah, the prior one, meaning you're volunteering to...
The AI one.
Okay.
I wonder, so AI has obviously been a big topic and everybody's issue number one. AI moves incredibly fast, so planting a seed here, but what about a project that's not a specific project, but like developing an RFP and a bunch of like mini grants for AI projects that can, do something useful, but complete it in a short amount of time? Because I worry about a full roadmap by the time you go through and get it funded and do the work and research and write a big report with all the best practices, that AI is like now 2 generations ahead and it is immediately outdated. So just, I don't know, throwing that out there for consideration.
Yeah, I think, doing something is a compelling thing to do. I mean, do we have like a hackathon? I mean, I've seen some people sitting down and creating applications in 30 minutes that use AI and raise other questions. Do we have like a CalBEM AI kind of thing like that?
I already told you yesterday. I think what we are seeing in the new generation is that they all go to the chatbots with a question. The biggest thing they're missing is defining the context before the question is asked. So are they using a zero-shot prompting or few-shot prompting or chain of thought prompting? What do we want our modelers to do? What is the best practice? And if people are using, how are they using right now? So what will be a good webinar or a seminar will be to ask people in the industry, how are they using chatbots today? And then have an open forum where we can at least guide them or say which is right or wrong from people that are familiar with doing modeling for a long time. So that's one aspect. The other is to really force towards agentic AI, where good AI practices are packaged into some form of tools that could be broadly used by the industry. So that way, in the old days, we used to call them knowledge-based systems. You're basically going to try to package them into some kind of agentic AI capsules with the skill sets defined. So those are two good ideas to pursue. Thanks.
Hi, great work you guys are doing. I noticed that one of your goals is encouraging BEM use. And so the question is, it includes education, training, and all that stuff. But I'm thinking that there also needs to be a strong emphasis on encouraging people to want to get into this, to want to be trained, to want to be educated in all this as well. So I'm just kind of wondering, I think public speaking and all that stuff is good to expose people and give them awareness of it, but trying to think of what the question is, and maybe the question is, what is a gateway drug that you guys can offer to get people that are unfamiliar with BEM into the BEM industry?
Any people here familiar with or experts on gateway drugs? Want to share ideas? One thought we had when we were thinking about these skills, like these valuable skills like scripting or complex HVAC modeling or something that can add a lot of value to projects, and so there are some people that know that would be really valuable for me to know. I just I don't have the time to do it. I don't know where to go to do it, all that kind of stuff. But then there's also the people who don't even know that they should know that. And that's kind of one step. You're already kind of like involved in energy modeling, but how do we let them know that you ought to know these things too? But then I guess you're talking about a step back where they're not yet involved in energy modeling, and how do we bring them in? I guess it's sort of a continuum of awareness we're looking for. We're open to thoughts. I mean, it's also been a topic, and I don't know how much time we have to talk about this, but it's been a long-standing topic that always comes up at our working group sessions, is increasing awareness of BEM, not just among people who might become energy modelers, but the people who work with energy modelers, might ask for an energy modeler to help them, for example, an architect, and how they can get value out of BEM. So, that's another sort of whole angle of education that we talk about a lot, and we haven't taken any specific actions on yet in CalBEM.
I'll say we took an early look at A2's deck for taking BEM into classrooms, and especially struck by the slide that Minecraftizes BEM, and tries to speak the language of younger people and make it a little bit cool. I thought that was great.
What comes after 2? It's 3. Working Group 3, if you would come up to review your findings. Thank you. I guess this is Haley Buchanan, Michael Safford, and Neil Bulger.
All right. Hello again, everyone. So another busy CalBEM symposium. We actually came up with quite a few issue statements based on not just our speakers. They caused a lot of problems that we had statements built off of, or inspired, not caused. So, but yeah, we're going to run through the statement problems and the issues really quickly, and then kind of try to consolidate all the questions at the end so everyone could keep in mind what we were talking about. So one of the things that came up, especially during our first working group day, working group breakout session, was Garth was providing some information regarding controlled environmental horticulture, energy modeling prototypes, and getting input from our team. And that did spur a lot of thought about covered process and where that falls in building modeling, the limitations. There were a lot of key barriers that came up. Although we started off talking about CEH, it kind of quickly spun into what other covered processes would be in there. There was a lot of complexity that would be coming up, software limitations to figure out how to model those complex covered process systems. And again, there was a lot of concern about demonstrating compliance and how that's done in the compliance software. In terms of next steps regarding covered process, we really wanted to connect the prototype developers, especially CEH, with the interested parties. Probably get more clarity regarding the limitations of compliance software, and again, around how covered process shows compliance in those softwares. And then continuing discussion about how covered process would be modeled on the CEH side, because that is a little bit more, not static, but the CEH buildings are all act a little bit more similarly. Those might be easier to develop a model for, but for other covered process systems that are very unique from site to site, that could be an issue. As for the very next steps, again, this was kind of prompted by the CEH energy model prototype discussion that Garth had, and getting that feedback. There were a lot of people that wanted to provide feedback to Garth regarding CEH prototypes, and there's going to be a really tight turnaround in terms of getting that information to Garth. So our immediate steps is to really make sure that we get those parties together and they can share that information amongst themselves. The second issue that came up, heat pump water heaters, you guys heard it here. We also heard it in our working group. As Neil pointed out, there's a couple of different solutions that are happening or being proposed for heat pump water heaters, but the main problem is that it's pretty difficult for compliance software to keep up with all the changes in modeling heat pump water heaters. So the software, because we don't update it as quickly as new heat pump water heaters are being released, we're not able to keep up. The new models aren't being represented in, I shouldn't say in the energy code, but in the energy compliance software. And also timing of software releases doesn't really match up with releases of equipment. So the next steps or possible actions for 2026, again, Neil brought up some proposed solutions. I know that our tools team has also been working on solutions for heat pump water heaters. A lot of this is going to be making sure that everyone's on the same page, sharing that information, making sure it's not too siloed, that everyone knows what's going on. And then, I think that also goes into the next steps of giving updates on how compliance modeling software is looking at heat pump water heaters and in the near term, and maybe even moving forward. The third problem statement that we had were modeling capabilities and desired modeling capabilities. In addition to our speakers, we did open up some time for our working group 3 members to identify some issues that they would like to see. And there were quite a few issues that we couldn't dive into, but the common ones were really increasing the capabilities of modeling. Some specific items that were brought up were the multifamily common use areas and how difficult it is to model there. And plant staging was brought up specifically, mainly that you can't use multi-fuels in our loops. So key barriers on this one is really clarifying what is needed in terms of compliance, the compliance requirements for common use space areas specifically, because that gets a little bit jumbled given that it's kind of a mix of non-res and res. And for plant staging, just looking at right now, software is looking at one fuel type, but there were some questions if multi-fuel could be used in different stages. Again, when we opened this up to the group, it was a lot of, we weren't able to get into too much detail on these items, so in terms of actions for 2026, we're gonna be looking at further clarifying the needs for those compliance modeling for those specific items and any other specific items that come up. So we're gonna be continuing that as a discussion item for Working Group 3's future meetings and get-togethers. The final item that we wanted to, problem statement that we brought up was the updates to technical specifications, which are underway. This was inspired by Krishnan and Xiaoji's discussion this morning, where they were giving an update on different specifications that they were working on, and really it was a good working exercise in our group, trying to prioritize which systems to take a look at and identify parties that would give feedback. So the key barriers is Krishnan and Xiaoji actually had this huge list of items to look at. We didn't make it through all of them. There's just, we need to prioritize those. So we're looking at feedback for prioritizing those, and then also getting the correct users and the correct interested parties, providing feedback and input on the different features. So possible actions for Working Group 3 on this item going forward, again, is giving updates to Working Group 3 as these technical specifications are being updated so that they can provide additional input, but also identifying additional opportunities for input and additional people that could provide input. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of people outside of Working Group 3 that would want to inform some of this stuff. So in terms of next steps, we're going to be going over the input from the breakout sessions. They were actually provided to Xiaoji and Krishnan already, but to see if there's, but we can reach out to them and see if there's any additional help that they need on that end and help in connecting with interested parties. So those were the four, really quickly, the four problem statements that we have, and we came up with a few questions here. Again, jumping back to issue 1, the covered process. Are there any specific covered processes that the group thinks should be considered in compliance modeling? And I'll also add here from the Energy Commission side, are there any concerns with how that would affect compliance or how that would affect things from the code standards, code side? For heat pump water heaters, we're looking at how can plans for heat pump water heaters be shared with interested parties. I think RJ pointed out that we do have some plans going into effect for compliance software, so really trying to make sure that everyone is on the same page, like I said, and up to date, and then also sharing other alternative ideas and getting everyone to weigh in on that. For modeling capabilities, what are the best resources for identifying issues with multifamily systems, and also what are examples of heating and plant staging with mixed fuel types. A lot of this is going to be around trying to dig down into the problems and make sure we understand the needs that are out there, which are going to be quite a few needs. So we'll be working with the groups to get that, that specified. And finally, on the tech specs, again, how can interested parties be identified and contacted so that the technical specifications or the systems that come out and are updated in an informed way. So I think we can open up for questions. And they are heavy, pretty heavy topics, so.
Yeah, and as we kind of saw, some of these are cross-pollinating for sure. So I think there's a lot of effort around heat pump water heaters. So we'll probably see where that goes in the new year. And a lot of these we'll just bring back up in January when we kick off the beginning of the year webinars. So stay tuned. Those were. So right now, like corridors in multifamily buildings, if it's residential, can only use CSE-based systems, and they were saying that's not always applicable. They need more systems that are more COM-based systems. So it was kind of a topic thrown out right at the end. We're like, that sounds pretty enticing. We should bring it back up in January. Do we add systems? Do we make that use systems from the COM side? What's even possible? We didn't even get into it. So, but that was the challenge. Is currently you're limited in those spaces.
And
to
kind
very
of
few
even,
systems.
yeah, and kind of more generally, I think there's going to be this topic of what limitations are there in compliance software that needs to be addressed. These were the ones that were thrown out at the last minute,
Yeah.
but we did combine them together because they're around that whole topic.
That's a great one. Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. Thanks. All right, I'm gonna wrap us up with a couple slides, and then you guys can go, I don't know, back to your regularly scheduled lives. In January, so this has been CalBEM. Thank you. The next recurring event that happens is in January. Each working group has a webinar. Again, just keeping the momentum going. The first slide you saw in this symposium was about the last 10 years. So this is our pyramid scheme. It just keeps going. So we'll have these webinars in January that will take the actions identified here and start to put them into play. And those can evolve into independent projects through our proposal process. If you are interested in making a proposal out of any of the ideas that were raised by the working groups, you can always just email the co-chairs or email info@calbem.org and say, I want to do the project on this. I want to be involved in this. And lo and behold, you shall be. So the next step to continue participating in working groups will be to sign up for one or all of these webinars. We do not limit your participation in multiple working groups throughout the year. It's just when you're here in this physical meet space that you have to choose one because you only have one meaty body. With that, we hope to see you. Keep an eye on your email. I assume if you registered, you're on our mailing list. If you're not, just go to calbem.org and scroll all the way to the bottom and add your email in there. I have one more sneaky ask. We ask you to give us feedback. Yeah, we're a big lovey-dovey group, and if you've been here before, you know I always beg people for their honest and vulnerable opinion of how this event has been. We really want to hear both your criticism and then I guess the things that you think are praiseworthy. So on each of your tables, you will find a manila folder. It says open when instructed. You are now instructed to. Please open it, fill out the survey with the pens on the table, and then you can put them back inside the manila envelope when they have been completed. Yeah, thank you guys so much. This has been a wonderful CalBEM. I think we had a ton of new faces, so I want to thank everybody who took the time to try out something new. I hope the free food made it worth it, and the bonus of all of the great conversation and networking and, I don't know, brainstorming was just the cherry on top. So thanks everybody so much for CalBEM 2025.